Today I'm going to share with you a really simple tip to make sure you're striking upwards with your driver and downwards with your irons to make sure you're maximising your distance as well as your control with both those clubs. Stay tuned to find out more. Welcome back to the TruGolf Academy. You've joined me, Jon Watts, today at Branston Golf and Country Club. Today's video, as I said, is all going to be about how to get the right strike with your irons and with the driver. With the driver, we're talking about creating an upward angle of attack that will help us maximise our distance. And with an iron, we're talking about hitting a little bit downwards on the golf ball, again for distance, but also for strike location contact that we're really looking for. And I've got a really simple tip with you, or for you. I'm going to be using some technology here which is going to look complicated, but it's not at all. It's just going to help prove my point. So all we're really going to be talking about is how your setup is going to help you deliver the upward angle of attack and the downward angle of attack you need with those two different golf clubs. So I'm going to be focusing here with a driver and with a mid iron. So I've got a driver and a 7-iron, and we're going to be talking about, as I said, creating the right angle of attack. So I'm going to start with a mid iron. So with a mid iron, with a 7-iron, I want a downward angle of attack. I want to be hitting the ball and the turf, and I want to be hitting a few degrees on the way down. So tour average with a mid iron is around 4 degrees on the way down. And we can do that from a number of ways, and I'm not going to get too deep into it now. And again, I have filmed some videos talking about how to make sure you're hitting ball turf contact and where your pressure should be. And I'll put a couple of relevant links just up here that's going to go into a little bit more detail about how we could actually strike downwards. What I'm going to be really focusing on here is the setup position. And that's why I've not only got my launch monitor, so on the screen you will see angle of attack is what I'm really going to be focusing on, and you'll see some other data there as well. But what this is going to help show us is whether I'm hitting up or down as I'm describing. And the reason I've got my body track system out, which is a force platform, is this is going to show where my pressure is at setup and in the swing. I'm mainly focusing on setup here. This is all about get your setup correct, and I think the rest of it will sort of all take care of itself, really. So I've got to move the ball a little bit just to get it in the right position for my launch monitor, and so my feet are in the right position on the mat here. But what you're going to see on the screen is where my pressure is. So with an iron in my hand, I want my pressure to slightly be favouring my lead foot. That is my left side, my side that's closest towards the target. And I want to be about 55 or 60% favouring my lead foot at setup. And that gives me some tilt in my shoulders because my right hand is lower than my left, but there'll only be a tilt of around 10 degrees. So if I get into my setup here with an iron, and I'm going to go ahead and hit one, and I'll do the same with the driver. Again, we're going to see the data up on the screen, not only from my body track where my pressure is, but from my launch monitor and head measurement device of whether I'm hitting up or down that I'm describing here. So what we're looking for, a little bit more awkward, there we go, is a downward angle of attack. So I want to be hitting downwards, hitting the ball, then the turf. How much we hit down does depend on the speed that we generate, but I definitely want a downward angle of attack. So even slower swingers, I would want it a degree or two down, and harder hitters maybe more like 3, 4, 5 degrees on the way down. Especially with a mid iron, this is that we're going to be focusing on. We may hit less down with a long iron and more down with a short iron. In our hand, I'm picking on a mid iron here, as I said, tour average is around 4 degrees on the way down. And I'm going to try and achieve this just by getting my setup position correct. So I'm trying to feel my nose is more over the top of the golf ball, and I'm trying to feel that my pressure is slightly favouring my lead foot at setup. Now I can feel that, and hopefully you will see the numbers up on the screen that my pressure is slightly favouring my lead side. What I'm trying to make is a swing, my pressure will be moving towards my trail foot on the backswing, and at impact I want it to move towards my lead side. But I'm really talking about get the angle of attack right by the ball position and where my weight is. So my ball position is relatively centered in my heels. I don't mind it a little bit forwards of that, but we don't want to go way forwards, and I want my pressure onto my lead side, and that's going to help me get this downward angle of attack. So let's give this a go, and you will see the data up on the screen from my force platform and from my launch monitor here. So got ball turf strike, felt really solid. Definitely felt pressure onto my lead side. Contact felt great. Hopefully the data will show that as well. I'm going to do the same now with a driver and talk about the difference at setup to help achieve that upward angle of attack. So actually the reality is with the tour players, the average on tour I think is actually more like half a degree down. But you've got to remember these guys on the tour are generating so much speed. Often they're actually changing, they're trying to hit more fades, perhaps to hit more fairways. They're not worrying so much about distance. So some of them are giving up some yards, but trying to hit some more fairways. For your average golfer, they will definitely hit the ball further from more of an upward angle of attack. They'll get a higher launch, a lower spin generally from there. So it's something we really want to see. I'm going to have to move my body track a little. Nearly. Just takes a bit of budging around just so you get the right data here. That seems pretty good. So what I'm trying to do with the driver is I'm going to move the ball a little bit more forwards in my stance so it's nearer my lead heel. But what I'm really trying to do without changing my hip alignment is tilt my shoulders, my sternum behind the golf ball, and now I'll feel a little bit more pressure onto my trail foot. So with an iron, I was 60% onto my lead foot at setup. With a driver, I want to be more like 60% on my back foot, so a little bit more tilted behind the golf ball. Those changes are really going to help me strike more upwards on the golf ball. I've moved the ball more forwards, I've tilted my sternum behind the ball, so I start with my pressure a little bit more onto my trail foot, and that's going to help me strike more upwards in the golf ball. As I swing, and I'm not going to get too much detail into this, again the pressure will move towards my trail foot, and again I want the pressure towards to move towards my lead foot on the downswing into impact. But this is all about how our setup position can help us create that upward blow or that downward blow depending on the club that we're using. So let me go ahead and hit one with the driver here. So I feel tilted behind the golf ball with my upper body. I feel like there's a little bit more pressure onto my trail foot. I got a nice high draw. Wouldn't normally take a driver on this hole, but I've managed to find the fairway. Definitely got an upward angle of attack there. The data looked pretty, or the flight looked pretty good, so hopefully the data will look good. But changing my setup in terms of my ball position and the tilt in my shoulders is affecting where my pressure is at setup. That has a huge impact on my angle of attack. So you will see there, I'm hoping, an upward angle of attack with the driver and a downward angle of attack with the iron. And for me, it was all about my setup position. So simply, if I can get my, you could think of it as weight or my pressure correct at setup, that's really going to help me get the right angle of attack and maximize your distance and your strike. If that video has helped, please hit the thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel for all the other videos every Tuesday and Thursday, as well as some Saturday specials.